Hey Gabe, MTH here. I watched your video here on YouTube in which you responded to the claim that Jesus is imaginary. While I'm an atheist, I don't believe Jesus, the historical person we know as Jesus of Nazareth, was imaginary. I suspect what the GodIsImaginary.com folks were attempting to get at were beliefs about Jesus as Christ or Messiah, the ever-living Lord and Savior, as opposed to the historical Jesus of Nazareth. In any case, my purpose in making this response was to address something that came up in your video, namely Jesus' post-resurrection appearances. I find this whole business about whom Jesus appeared to after his resurrection to be something of a muddle. The New Testament appears to give a variety of conflicting answers. Perhaps you can help me out here. I'll detail the problem as I see it. The 10th chapter of Acts has the Apostle Peter saying the following: God raised Jesus up on the third day and granted that he should become visible, not to all people, but to witnesses who were chosen beforehand by God, that is, to us who ate and drank with him after he arose from the dead. And Jesus ordered us to preach to the people and solemnly to testify that this is the one who has been appointed by God as judge of the living and the dead. So Peter seems to be saying that after his resurrection, Jesus became visible only to Peter and the other apostles, the ones who were commissioned to preach the gospel. Paul tells a somewhat different story. He wrote that Jesus first appeared to Peter and then to the 12. Paul seems to be unaware of Judas's, let's say, departure from the group. After this, Paul tells us, Jesus appeared to more than 500 brethren at one time. It's really quite something. Paul goes on. Then he appeared to James. I take it this is a reference to Jesus' brother, James. Then Jesus appeared to all the apostles. Now, I thought he'd done this already, but I guess he did it again. Could do that. Paul goes on, and last of all, as it were to one untimely born, Jesus appeared to me also. At this point, I guess, the conflict is really limited to one thing. Peter says Jesus became visible only to him and to the other apostles who ate and drank with Jesus after he rose from the dead, the ones who were commissioned to preach the gospel by Jesus. But Paul inserts this business about Jesus appearing to more than 500 people after he appeared to the apostles. This is something about which Peter appears to know nothing. Let's motor over to the Gospel of Matthew. To whom does the risen Jesus appear there? According to Matthew, the first people to whom the risen Jesus appeared were Mary Magdalene and someone who's identified only as the other Mary. The two women had come to have a look at the tomb a bit earlier, gotten the news from an angel that Jesus had risen from the dead, and while they were on their way to report the news to the disciples, Matthew tells us Jesus met and greeted them. The two women spent a few worshipful moments with Jesus, then he sends them off to the disciples, whom he wants to meet on a mountain in Galilee. The next time and the last time Matthew has Jesus appear, it is to the 11 disciples. Matthew tells us the 11 disciples were on the mountain which Jesus had designated. Jesus gives the 11 some instructions and promises to be with them always. Oddly enough, Matthew tells us that while Jesus was appearing to the 11 and they were worshiping him, some were doubtful. Anyway, there's no appearance to 500 plus brethren here, and there's nothing about an appearance to Peter alone. What does Mark's Gospel say? Well, this gets a little bit complicated. Mark has 3 women going to Jesus' tomb. Mark 16:1 tells us it's Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. The 3 women encounter an angel inside Jesus' tomb. The angel tells the three women that Jesus is risen from the dead. He instructs them to go tell the disciples that they'll see Jesus in Galilee. The text of Mark's Gospel, about which everyone agrees, ends at the next verse, Mark 16:8. And they went out and fled from the tomb, for trembling and astonishment gripped them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. On this account, the risen Jesus appeared to no one. Verses 9 through 20 of Mark 16, which virtually all textual critics agree is a later addition to the text, augment the story a bit. Mark 16:9 tells us Jesus first appeared to Mary Magdalene. It seems, in the opinion of the writer, Mary Magdalene dumped Mary, the mother of James, and Salome at some point. The additional text says that after Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene, Jesus appeared in a different form to two of them while they were walking along on their way to the country. If you're like me, you'll agree there's nothing quite like a trip to the country to help one deal with the grief about a beloved friend's brutal execution a few days earlier. Jesus' next appearance is to the 11. Jesus appeared to the 11 themselves as they were reclining at the table. He gives them instructions, including some odd stuff about picking up serpents and drinking poison, and then Jesus was received up into heaven. No mountain, no 500 plus brethren, no other Mary, and no appearance to Peter alone. How about Luke? What does that gospel have to say? The author of Luke assures his readers up front that he investigated everything very carefully. He has at least 5 women go to Jesus' tomb. There's Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and other women. The 5 or more women are greeted by 2 angels. The 2 angels are inside Jesus' tomb. The angels tell the women Jesus is risen, and the women go to tell the apostles the news. Jesus never appears to the women. The first people to see the risen Jesus in Luke are 2 unnamed disciples who were on their way to a village named Emmaus that was 7 miles from Jerusalem. Eventually, the 2 go back to Jerusalem, where they find out that the Lord has appeared to Peter. Then Jesus appears to the 11 while they're talking. Jesus speaks with them, eats a bit of fish, and tells them to stay in Jerusalem. Then Jesus parted from them. No appearance to 500 plus brethren. No appearance to Mary Magdalene or any other Mary. There doesn't even appear to have been a mountain. So what's John's gospel have to say? Well, Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb by herself. She finds it empty and runs off to tell the disciples Jesus' body is gone. She eventually returns to the tomb, speaks with 2 angels sitting inside of it, and she is the first to see the risen Jesus, though she initially mistakes him for the gardener. She's all by herself. Jesus appears several more times, always and only to the apostles. This includes the famous appearance where Jesus invites Thomas to reach his fingers into Jesus' wounds. But there's no appearance to 500 plus brethren. There's no other Mary, no mountain, and Peter doesn't see him first or alone. What to make of all this? Is there a coherent chronological narrative that I'm missing? If so, would you share it with me, please? Thanks.